It's because we truly believe in this part of our mission that there is enough spaces to go around. 14 million people a year who get Botox. There's never going to be enough nurses to treat the amount of people who are going to get aesthetics. So why be jerks about it?
All right, welcome to another episode of Medical Entrepreneur Podcast. We are so excited to have Mary and Carla Smiley with us on. And Mary and Carla, please let us know a little bit more about yourselves and tell us about your journey.
Sure. So I'm Mary Smiley Ford. Smiley's our maiden name, which is how we came up with Smiley Aesthetics. I am founder and CEO of Smiley Aesthetics, and I'll let Carla introduce herself. Yep, I'm Carla Smiley Pearson. I'm also co-founder and co-owner with Mary of Smiley Aesthetics, and my title is COO, or Chief of Business and Operations.
Well, tell us a bit more about kind of your journey, and maybe if we start with how did you first get into medicine, and then what made you follow the entrepreneurial route that led to Smiley Aesthetics?
Sure. So the journey kind of started with me. My story, or really the story of Smiley, technically starts like a little over 4 years ago. I struggled with addiction a little over 4.5 years ago, and went into treatment and went into recovery. Part of that, the anesthesia community especially, is super taboo. It's also very, there's a stereotype that comes with that. And then, part of what we do is go into a monitoring program in each state. That prevents you from working in anesthesia for a year. I don't really speak more to that. It's frustrating and it's tough because it's a loss of income that you have to find another avenue, essentially with your registered nurse degree, that kind of doesn't involve any type of controlled substance. When that happened, I got a position at a med spa in Knoxville, where I was based at the time and where I went to anesthesia school. And I started as their first injector, a brand new med spa. And so we can speak more to training and me diving into that and experience. So I did that for a couple of years, went back to anesthesia, of course. And then in the fall of 2021, I kind of was pregnant with my second child. Looking for something to do outside the OR again for a while, and the idea of doing some mobile Botox kind of came. Not a new idea, but thought that would be fun. Had a great physician who was a good friend of mine who was super open to the idea of being a medical director, and me just doing it in Knoxville. Being identical twin sisters, everything I do, I kind of pitched to her. I was like, you should run around Nashville and we should do this together. And he was amenable to having multiple injectors. And so that's how Smiley Aesthetics, as a brand was born. We filed with the state on February 16th and launched the actual Smiley Aesthetics on February 16th, our birthday of last year in 2022. And then quickly saturated with our clientele as a side job, if you will, a very important side job when I say side job, but as a side job. And we wanted to bring on another nurse, and we wanted to monetize that for us. How can we make this into a business? With that being said, the compliance piece of it, which I definitely know you, Jennifer, speak to a lot, was a big part of it. So we brought on our attorney as a partner with us, and the model as it stands today was born in May, just a year ago, and we've just expanded very quickly into 9 states, actually. We have 5 brick-and-mortar locations, and we have over 90 mobile med spas now.
Wow. So that's just a little over a year. You said 5 brick-and-mortar locations. 90 injectors?
A little over 90 mobile injectors. Some of them do have their own med spas that we own technically, but they kind of run their own businesses. It's an owner-operator kind of model. But yes, over 90 of those.
Wow, what incredible fast journey.
Yes.
I'm sure to you guys, you feel like it seems like it happened fast or it happened slow. So when you said that about you kind of were out of work because you couldn't work in anesthesia. So basically Smiley was born out of a necessity.
1 in 4 providers for anesthesia specifically deal with addiction. And for us, because our access is to narcotics is so accessible, I'm not sure how else to say that. Once you're, expose yourself or ask for help, you can become very limited in what you can do for that year, like I said. So losing that income is challenging. And so, needing to go into the aesthetic space was kind of born out of a necessity and also an interest, but truly out of necessity. The interest and the love for the space did not come first. That's for sure for me. yeah, it was definitely out of necessity. And the reason that Smiley Aesthetics is here, honestly, that was a very difficult time in my life in terms of losing your career for a year and then find a challenge of, okay, why have you been out for a year? And then looking to the future of finding those jobs and stuff. All that is still a challenge I face today. I still do anesthesia on the side. It's still a challenge. If I ever left that, it would still be very challenging for me to move forward. So it's certainly a amazing opportunity for any medical provider in addiction to be in the medical space without some of the controlled substance issues, and then to still be very successful. So it's really an important part of our story for sure.
I love that you share that. And I do find it very, I guess, frustrating that it is such a taboo subject in our anesthesia, profession, that it is taboo and you're probably treated maybe differently when it is so common. And I always think, what is being done to help? And so I feel like you're a very good example of someone to say like, hey, what looks like maybe is one of the worst things that happened to you, that can be your restart. That can be your rebirth. And now I'm sure for you, it'd be hard to imagine that you ever do an anesthesia again full time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely don't ever see myself doing it full time again. I love it, and that's why I've continued it. I don't necessarily even need to do it now, but it is something we talk about very frequently on when's the time for me to just give it up. That has implications for my entire family. And back to your to what you mentioned about so taboo, because assumptions are made very quickly about, well, if an anesthesia provider has an addiction, no matter what it is, they're clearly stealing from the OR. So that very strong, just like connection is very unfortunate. It is not true much of the time, and then it is true a lot of the time. But even those people deserve help. They deserve, it's a disease. They deserve a second chance, if you will. So yeah, and then I like to say I did not come out with this story until last fall. By doing that, I am inviting very openly people to reach out, and they have to ask me questions about everything from what happened to me all the way to when I came out, because that's an important part of anyone in recovery story. I wouldn't recommend it on day one. And then, what I've done since to be in recovery and what that looks like for me, because everyone's story is unique. And I think part of Smiley's mission is to provide an opportunity for people, both CRNAs and otherwise, and nurses, to do something different than what is the standard, to not just work in a hospital or work for a physician, or the things that we are kind of taught in school that that's what you're going to do. This is the only way. This is what it is. Not to take it away from her story, but that was where the other half of my mission came in, because my background in leadership in the hospital, you've seen all kinds of whether it's addiction or just the general burnout. COVID just was tough. And so it's an opportunity to get away from that. I like what you said, Dr. Sewell, and then I'll be quiet about that. But you said mainstream, you used the word mainstream medicine. It's certainly an opportunity to get out of mainstream medicine on her front, like she said, and then from the hospital as well as an addiction standpoint.
I just wanted to congratulate you again, because like there's so many people that have addictions and they don't, many of the addictions that are out there are not to narcotics, like especially in anesthesia, to alcohol. Like there's so many people that I've seen in anesthesia where, I know at least 2 providers that I actually worked with at the hospital that had addictions that had to get treated. And it's just like you said, it's very taboo and everybody's kind of sweeps it under the rug. But just to stand out and to show that, hey, this negative thing happened, but you took that and you used it as a positive and you overcame that. And that to me is such an inspiring story. And to kind of speak to the opportunity as well, just like you said, like, many times we're programmed or we're told or we're assumed this is the only way that we can do these things. And the reality is that all of us are very powerful. All of us have huge amounts of knowledge. And no matter what training you did, getting into medicine in any form is a challenge, And so compared to the average, job or something that's out there, like you've undergone so much. And then, so I think by showing you as a model for other people, like it allows people to realize the potential that they have inside of them. So I just wanted to congratulate both of you on that.
Yeah. And that speaks a lot to your, how do we say, tenacity or mental toughness, because I know a lot of people, like, if they had to take the year off and just treatment and it wrecked them, they get a really hard time. But you not only survived that, came through it, but also started a business, which is one of the toughest things that you can do. So that says a lot to, that your mental strength that you have, that you did two really hard things at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Having her, by my side, and it makes me emotional. It just never would have happened. And so, like you said, entrepreneurship is lonely and it's tough, and we love to speak to the fact that having someone on the same wavelength with us through the journey is, you can't. A lot of people don't have that, and so, I just super grateful to be here. The growth that's happened over the 4.5 years for me is instrumental in just everything that we can provide now for people from that mental health standpoint and addiction. And I do hope to grow the platform for that.
And that's something we always say too, that business ownership, entrepreneurship is more of a personal development journey. Do either of you want to speak of how maybe you feel like you've grown as people just since starting this?
Yeah. So like I said, my background being with a large healthcare company, I was a manager and a leader, and you didn't get to define what your culture was because the company had already defined it. And defining your own culture is really just an exercise in personal growth. So owning your own business and starting your own business, particularly on this particular platform, has allowed me, definitely, and both of us, to decide who we want to be as leaders, who we want to be in this company, and then to test ourselves to see if we can stick to it. Because if money ever gets tight or there's a big decision to be made, it's pretty easy it feels pretty easy sometimes, and that it happens that the employees or the people underneath are those the ones that end up suffering. And we have realized and grown into what our culture is, and we are not wavering from it, and we are taking care of our injectors, our people, first and foremost. And that really has helped us both grow, not only an appreciation for each other, because her going through her journey was hard, right? Like, not to harder on her, but like, Lord have mercy, God killed me. So that really was challenging for her to ask hey, you should do mobile Botox. That wasn't, I wasn't overly interested. And then to start to grow this out of really more of a need than a desire, which quickly turned into a desire and turned into both of our passion. It really helped me come into my own as a entrepreneur and as an operations and systems person. And so you see that personal growth, and that has been important. And then we're able to sink that into our own culture. We get to decide. I get to decide what are the pillars we're going to stand on. What is this culture going to be? And it's been an interesting journey, and that is by far the most attractive piece of this. And it's worth the ride to get to decide who and what you want to be.
Yeah, I love how you explain that, because no one's ever said that in such a way. The company determines your culture and what you're going to believe. But now you're totally, in charge of your own destiny, the captain of your own ship through what you've done.
That's so amazing. Like, I remember when I was stuck in mainstream medicine, I had this opportunity where I had a clinic on the side and it wasn't making any money. And I was still doing my main, mainstream medical job. And I had the guy who was like my boss came to me and said, hey, you got to make a decision. And I just remember this one quote, and it just, like, when you said that, it triggered me, like in a good way, I guess. It triggered me to remember, like, I remember this quote, and it said, ships are safe in the harbor, but ships are not meant to be in the harbor. And just like with the both of you, I mean, you can, like, this is definitely your destiny or your passion. Or you can, like, I can only imagine how far the versions of yourself are now from where you would have been if you had just stayed in traditional mainstream medicine. So
don't get me wrong, like the experience in the career that I had certainly defined me personally, and more in the things I did want to do, but obviously more importantly, the things I didn't want to do. So I do believe that growth, and they did so much for me between the education and the opportunity, and they took a chance on me when I was very young, which certainly helped this process along. So I can't, say, of course, that it was our journey or what has happened. They had so much to do with it. I'm definitely grateful to mainstream medicine, because it not only grows you into what you are, but also shows you what you don't want to be.
And just for people that can't, see or don't know your backstory, you guys are identical twins. Maybe could you talk a little bit more about kind of your kind of how you maybe grew up, and then how you guys, supported each other? Because I know for me, I'm always fascinated by twins. I think a lot of people are. Do you feel comfortable talking about that?
Yeah. So we grew up born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee. Our parents divorced at a very early age, that when we were 3, which was kind of defining for us in a lot of ways. Wasn't an overly, healthy situation growing up between our parents, but that is probably some of the thing that bonded us even further. Obviously, we're identical twins. We are those freaky identical twins that are made for each other. Like there's no fraternal twins are very different. Even identical twins that aren't as close. Like we are the closest of the close when it comes to that. So that is an advantage. And I always bring that up when we're doing our trainings and we're teaching other nurses. I'm like, we have an advantage. We're identical twins with the last name Smiley for crying out loud. Marketing dream in aesthetics. So we've used that to our advantage. But when it comes to business and our childhood, we leaned on each other heavily throughout our childhood. We had some bumps. We had some times when we grew apart. But then ultimately, we really truly believe a biological need for one another is why we just came right back. Our husbands support that. They understand the relationship. And it's a need. It's not a desire. And I think that is a difference. We're a shining example of why family and business can work, but also a bad example because there is a literal biological issue that makes it work because we're not going to do it without each other. So I always caution people, you can set boundaries, you can set swim lanes. And we, through a lifetime of being together, we're able to define those and bleed them into our business in a healthy way to make it work.
You're talking about when you train injectors and even the culture, that you set for your injectors. One of our mentors says something to the fact that like you can feel like you really understand something. And then after you teach it to someone else, like you understand it to a whole different level. Have you have any thoughts on that? Like now that you've mentored and helped maybe 90 injectors, that work with you, how do you feel like it's changed your own practice or your skill set?
It changed in the beginning. It doesn't change too much now once I've done it enough or trained, probably hundreds of providers at this point. What does change is a lot of what we're speaking to today. How you train, being able to speak to your audience, be able to look at somebody and see their positives, their strengths and their weaknesses, even see what they're struggling with. A whole day of training, we keep our trainings, to 10 or under for the reason that they can never get too big and definitely have 2 or 3 providers when we do train. But so that I can see people and help them, see their struggle and stuff. A lot of that has come from the growth of being therapized, like I like to call it, because I love therapy. I think everybody should be in it, but being heavily therapized over the past 4 years. But all of that has come together, back to your point of like being something a destiny or Darcy, your point, to be able to provide a training that goes deeper than just like poke here, do this, and then send them on. I think something else that has really changed the way we train and the way we train our trainers and the way our program has developed is our model. And the fact that we are typically training 90% of the people in the class are those that are coming on with us in some form or fashion, owning their own business with us. And then they go into a community. And when because aesthetics is, you've mentioned like being in the CRNA can be a bit of a jerk community. Aesthetics most certainly is. And people are very competitive and they don't want to help and they're charging crazy amounts for shadowing and things like that. Well, what we built in our company is that team approach where there is no competition. Yes, it's your own clients, it's your own business, but we are all in a group, WhatsApp, all kinds of things. And this is just consistent support structure. And the reason I share that is because that also changes the way why our training or why she trains differently, because you're not just sending them out. Good luck. Don't screw it up. You really are going to go continue learning and growing at the appropriate pace with 90 other people who are either just starting, mature, way down the road, whatever the case is. So that has altered the way that you've trained, I think. Well, and with that being said, the people that don't come on with us that I do send out to the world are also welcome. Right. They get free anything after. I spend a lot of my time answering messages from our aesthetics group, emails, phone calls, just to say, you're not coming on with us. We, sure, it's a pitch a little bit. We can provide you with this, or I will help you get set up with Allergan, MERS, anybody that you need to. Here's how you do this. Here's what I found with those skin pen and our Juvipen. I don't know if we're allowed to say brands, but, and just give as much advice business-wise as well as, clinically that I can without charging anybody for it. And to tie that up, it's because we truly believe in this part of our mission that there is enough spaces to go around. The at this time. One day, sure, that might change. We're years away from a saturation. There is, 14 million people a year who get Botox. There's 400 million or something like that in the country. Like, it's a joke, right? There's never going to be enough nurses to treat the amount of people who are going to get aesthetics. So why be jerks about it?
I love the fact that you focus on the community over the competition, because that's like the number one mistake I see, especially healthcare entrepreneurs or medical entrepreneurs make, is that and I'd made this when I first came out, I was so focused on, oh, Dr. X is over there, like he's going to take my business. And the reality is, when you do the math, like you guys could both be maxed out and like 10 other people would be maxed out, and you still wouldn't be big enough to even.
Oh, yeah, not even close.
And I'm not sure if you saw the study from Allergan that they just recently did, where they showed that they had a question. They said, how much has neuromodulator, Botox and other neuromodulators, how much have they penetrated the market? Like, how much market is left over? And what they came back and found was that all the neuromodulators currently have only penetrated the market 5%.
Yeah, that's crazy.
There's another 95% open. So that's why, just like you said, 100%, there are more than enough people that want this. And just like what we see with our med spas and some of the ones that, we coach as well, is that most of the people that are coming in are people that are interested, but they don't have enough information. So like they're kind of sitting on the sidelines.
Right. It's not like I want to steal like a few of your lines, and let me know if those are tradable. But your community over competition, I mean, that's in 3 words defining what we're trying to grow here. There is a level of consulting that at some point I think that I'm going to offer. And I don't want to take down the entrepreneur part of it. Will we monetize something eventually? Of course. Will I always be a free advice person to our aesthetics community for the CRNAs? Absolutely. There will be a line where you cross over into a hands-on consultant for your business. That's probably going to be a thing. However, it'll never get away from the community or competition thing of I won't answer a question because I want to charge for it. I just, that's kind of the stuff that we're just staying away from. And we really focus in on the business part of it, right? Because nurses are quite simply, like we talked about, taught a trade. We don't, most of us, I mean, not to offend, but it's true. Don't know how to do your taxes. An LLC, what is that? Like, it's just the most basics of things we were just not taught because it's essentially a trade school. So from a nursing perspective, and even physicians, I think, they typically have a little bit more of that, but it's still very focused and mainstream medicine. When in reality, that the critical thinking, some of those skills that you need to be a good medical provider are things that make great entrepreneurs. Yes. So trying to help bridge that gap. Not everybody has to get an MBA, but we can help bridge that gap for them to get some of the basics started so they can compliantly and safely and smartly get started from a business perspective too.
I think you nailed it right on the head, Carla. No, especially physicians, like I've never seen anyone have really good business education at all. And I don't think, definitely not CRNAs, definitely not RNs, definitely not nurse practitioners, definitely not PAs. I think they purposely deprive us of that in many ways, because the whole goal isn't to turn out an entrepreneur that can have their own practice. It's to turn out an employee for a large system.
For a hospital. Sorry. Yeah, true.
I think what you guys are doing is you're empowering so many people. And that's kind of like, similar to the mission of medical entrepreneurs, to show people like, hey, you can build your own business. It's not like rocket science. Like if you can figure out how to be an RN, the business stuff is way easier than understanding, like cardiovascular physiology or whatever.
Yeah, it's just daunting. Yeah. Well, and it is easy. And then by becoming a medical provider, you have just put up the biggest barrier to entry to your space and whatever it is, as long as you're utilizing that license, which is one of the biggest things in entrepreneurship is what barrier to entry is there so someone doesn't just rip you off. Bam, you have a medical license. Let's just toss that sucker right up there and fortify it, because that you're starting out so much farther ahead of the game than other people. So it really is cool and something that should be shared. And I want to we've been just screaming it from the rooftops. You can do it.
Well, I think you guys are kind of disrupting the industry, especially in Tennessee, but now you're expanding into other states too, because previously when you talk about barrier of entry, I feel like for any like nurse, CRNA, nurse practitioner that wants to go into business, like there's so much to figure out, but you guys are kind of simplifying it because you're like, hey, we figured it out. Come join us. You still have your own business. What advice do you have for anyone maybe that's like trying to start this? Like, what would be your first advice if you're thinking about getting to aesthetics, you're not really sure to start? Like, what's your first actionable?
We can even do this better. It's catching people more upstream. For medical providers, the first thing they think they need to do when they want to do something is to go get trained. And in fact, I really would rather than, in our particular example, have done all these other pieces beforehand so that the skill can be implemented as close to training as possible. We know how it works. Practice a Foley. It's a lot easier to go put one in and then wait 6 months to do it. And then you're freaking out all over again.
Basically, I think your advice is really correct because we see that all the time where people go, they get training, they'll do all their training and then it's like, okay, now I'm ready to start. They don't have a medical director. They don't have anything set up like a business structure, nothing,
Yeah, all the time. Yeah. So that is the biggest piece of advice that I would give to people, assuming you're not like coming into a model like ours, is to try and find that person to do that flight consultation with. I would say do not Google. You need to go speak to somebody and be wary of that person because the level of compliance out there is rather low. But go try to find a credible resource and get some of those first steps taken care of before you go seek out that training. Well, let me speak to that. A credible resource being just because your brother's an attorney does not mean he has any idea what the heck he's talking about. And And then let me take it a step further. Even if he's a healthcare attorney, he still probably does not know exactly with medical spa laws, what exactly they mean. And then importantly, your state. Let's talk about finding the resource in your state because every state is so different, or at least there are varying levels of each state. And so those are definitely some of the pieces. Find out what you need when you're not joining a Smiley Aesthetics or something. You want to do this by yourself, totally doable, but finding what you need to be compliant because your entire career is on the line, as we all know, sitting on this call. So treating it as such. And I use the analogy that nurses, when you go into a hospital, you have your clients handed to you. You go into a supply room and you grab everything that you need and you're just do whatever. Oh, that fully touched her leg. Toss that one out and grab another one. It's only $1,500, but the hospital's paying for it. No sweat. This is just completely different. So the same way that you would set up a procedure and with the care, let's say a physician was coming in and they were coming in to do a procedure. You set up everything you can think that person needs in the room so that it is as smooth as possible. That is an analogy to a business plan. We often don't want to do that because it's not in our nature. Someone's crashing and burning. Decision, action. That is not what you're getting into. You're getting into owning and operating your own business, and it is very different, very doable, but very different. So the first step, business plan and foundation. What do you need? A medical director, an EMR, some legal agreements between you and your medical director, your account with whatever service you're going to provide. And then I also tell them, start slow because you have such wide profit margins on aesthetics and you really can make some good money and utilize free social media marketing and other things like that. If you'll just calm down and not jump straight into 47,000 lasers and 14 different procedures, you will make the money you need to then feed back in. And that is our model and what we're teaching nurses. For very low overhead and very low entry financially, you can start a business, which is exactly what we did. We put no money into this other than our training and our initial supply, which is what we have now emulated. You can then build if you'll just be patient. But as medical providers, that's not how we operate, right? Because everything in the hospital is you have 12 hours. Get that mess done. You didn't get out. They're dying. They're not dying. Go. I mean, it's a very different situation. So take a breath, make a plan.
You hit it right on the head, Carla. That's so especially ingrained, and even it's for all medical providers, but it's on to even hyper ingrained, especially in people that work in the operating room because you can still turn,
Yeah.
It's perfect. That's you hit it right on the head. Exactly. And the whole idea of taking the time to gain some clarity by writing the business plan first pays for itself over and over,
Yes. And it doesn't have to be some special business plans. Just what do I need? Yeah. And then this is where it rolls back to what we've already discussed. Finding people that are jerks and who will tell you, here are the things that you need. I may not be able to speak to, New Mexico at this point in time, and I'm never giving legal advice. Nothing we talk about on this podcast or anywhere else is legal advice, but finding somebody who will just tell you, here's a list of 5 things that you should start with and then consider your training. And then I have thoughts on where, on how to pick your training, of course, as well.
I love it too, what you said about the starting small, because I feel like even maybe after training, like as soon as you get a space, the first thing, here comes a laser salesman, here comes a whatever, like all the salesmen, and like they have all these like big, like grandiose ideas of like, hey, you can make like $1 million a year with this one machine. And I feel like that, like you said, they kind of take advantage of the whole medical background that you don't really know like a lot about business. And I see a lot of people make that mistake. And like what you said, like they don't think about, oh, I need to get patients first. And I love how you guys are just like reiterate over like, hey, start simple, let everything pay for itself. Don't go into debt, start small and let the business pay for itself.
Yeah. And that's so important. What you said, don't forget you have to have clients first to be able to use that cute little laser you have in the nobody will give you those and even we at Smiley, the one thing we say we cannot provide you is a client. Like we don't have a client list. Now with branding, we do get clients through a website that we're able to divvy out to people, but still it's nothing like the hospital, the 50 clients. Yeah, you need to, here's your 6 patients, 2 or whatever it is. Yeah, no, that way.
I love that. And that's just a hallmark of true entrepreneur to not, overly use resources when you start, like the whole ability to bootstrap like that. That's always somebody who knows what they're doing in business. So congratulations, both of you. You're helping so many people.
Yeah. Entrepreneurs use what they have. Like they figure out to, sell what they have before they add something else.
Yeah.
Nice.
One of the questions we want to ask you, kind of like a general question, and it's designed to kind of provoke some thought. What should everyone in the aesthetic industry stop doing?
Fighting, being jerks. This is true. I mean, the bedrock of aesthetics is built on competition, and it is built on, tearing down the other injector. Someone comes in, unhappy with the other injector. It is a culture and one of our sticking points. If you're with our branding and our model, like I'm never tearing down the other injector. Now, if they're, somebody who's not even a medical provider who's sticking Korean-based filler in your face, I will tear them down all day long. But just because another injector blocked you or something like that, I don't even want to know. Yeah, like I don't care. Try to catch it on the front end, and I would prefer not to know who, where you were at, what med spa you're at, or what injector you're using, when it's local. I don't even want to know. It only hurts the industry and tear each other down. And it's only going to bring, to your point earlier, Dr. Sewell, it's only going to bring in more of that 95% into us if we are collectively positive about each other and about the experience. And there's plenty of those people to go around. So stop being so competitive with each other. There's plenty of room for everybody. Everyone is much more attracted to an industry that is not so competitive.
That is so true. That's such a good answer. I was wondering if you could maybe talk about the 3 fears that you see that are holding people back from maybe making that leap from going from maybe a mainstream medicine job. I say this on the back of, you may have seen recently, there's been some published data on physicians. They don't really do it for nurse practitioners, for CRNAs. They don't do this because I think they'll find that it's even worse. But you see like the suicide rates are through the roof, people depression levels through the roof, burnout, through the roof, right? If someone is stuck like that, you've helped so many people go from that situation to having their own business now, even if it's just a side business, what do you find are the 3 fears that kind of hold them back?
Yeah, I mean, financially is number one. They are afraid. Our goal is to help them at a minimum drop that 4th shift at the most base. Like you make an extra $600 or $700. Well, we all know in aesthetics, you can do that very quickly. So we can get you there. I mean, we can definitely help you get there. But that financial piece is that financial leap. Because if you start a business on the side, you have your current salary, and then your business grows and grows and grows, and then you're making double. I mean, you're burning it from both ends, but you have this much, and then you have to drop this one. And you essentially went back what you were before you can then go like that. So I think the financial piece is one of the scariest things in aesthetics. And then the second one I'll say, and then I'll let Mary say one, is the fear of competition. One of the biggest things I get is that I'm turning into this business and this industry in particular, and everyone is mean. Like I've tried to ask questions just to even see if I want to do this, and no one will talk to me. They want to charge me hundreds of dollars just to get a question. And so there's this idea that, again, it's thousands of dollars just to get started, because the first time you go ask a question, someone wants $500. And it's like, it's just ridiculous. So a fear of the unknown, because we created this culture. And then, a third fear would be saying not to talk about failure, just in general, failing both financially, failing as a business, which is also financial. But then from aesthetics, it's being good at what we're doing as injectors, right? So especially anesthesia and all medical providers, we're already type A. And so we want to be the best of the best. And so if I start out and I have my first, I speak to this a lot in training, the first set I left, I knew just stinks. And that she's not happy, and I had to dissolve them, and then she went somewhere else. That sinks some people right away. They just are done. That third fear of not being the best of the best, because we're all type A medical providers, and then having a set of lips that fails, or a Botox that, maybe spocks an eyebrow or droops a lid or something, and then feeling like, you can't go on and it's just over. That's a huge fear in aesthetics that I definitely, that definitely is top 3.
Your point, Mary, is really, really valid, because I feel like so many medical professionals, we have undergone so much education, and the education system isn't based on the real world. So you're told, oh, you got to get 90%. Oh, you got to get 95%. You're trying to reach this unattainable, like being perfect, when in the real world, there's a lot of things in the real world that work really great that aren't perfect, Yeah. And like when you build a business, your business is never perfect. I've never built a business that's been perfect. I've never seen one that's perfect. There's always room for improvement, right? And so a lot of that's just switching that mindset. So you hit it right on the head. That's so often we're trained, got to do perfect. If it's not perfect, then they shut themselves down, like, oh, I'm a failure. I couldn't do it, because I didn't get my 98% or whatever,
We were having this conversation about that actually at dinner last night. If you wait until everything's perfect, like it just may never happen. So you have to start and then perfect the process.
So true for so many things in life. There's never a perfect time to have a kid for most people. There's never a perfect time to start a business. There's never a perfect time to move to a new city. So It's the same thing here. And then to what you just said, Dr. Sewell, like this whole, we're taught by a book. It's similar in aesthetics. There is a didactic portion of education that needs to happen, but there's a million ways to do, 1,000 ways to do a set of lips. So, that's overwhelming to a beginning injector, but it's also, I try to spin it into a positive thing of, safety first. And then how do you get that perfect set of lips? It's going to evolve from what I taught you, from what so-and-so taught you. And then you get all this training your first, hopefully forever, all the time. But as your trainings go, you learn something totally new that's just totally different than safety stays the same. I think that's across the board, similar in every training, or it should be. But how to inject and the practical side of it is way past didactic and stuff. And so I also think in business and in medicine, and people may not resonate with this term, but it's constantly shoved down our throats without us realizing it, is that whole kind of high reliability organization thesis. Airlines, supposed to be in hospitals and medicine, like that need for perfection all the time, because you are dealing with, in the medical side, in a hospital, patients' lives. And it is hard for nurses and medical providers to disassociate that, when the reality is this is reversible. This is going to go away. You're not going to kill somebody. I mean, I think that to speak to the level of needed perfection in terms of a fear, backing off that a little bit. We want to be safe and be quality, but guys, we're not, this doesn't have to be perfect. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any advice for managing patient expectations? Because I feel like that's kind of a lot of what we do is managing expectations. Any advice you'd like to give on that?
It's just setting it. Yes, I have a strong opinion. That's similar to most people. It's setting it on the front end. I mean, the first thing I do before I ever touch a patient is set expectations for whatever service they want, and then any potential services that they want beyond that. And if I can set that expectation initially, I drill that in so much. Even setting the expectations that your Botox may not work at all. I mean, the worst case scenarios for the vascular occlusions, it's like, providers are scared to talk about some of those things with the person in the chair for fear of them maybe not wanting to get the service, I guess, or maybe add on the filler the next time they come in. But in fact, that's proven to not be true. And that transparency and that education, which is a foundation of Smiley Aesthetics and how we teach people to inject, is have an educational background or an educational starting point, which they need to know why they got 40 units in their face, or my thought behind the 64 units in their face, not just, this is what I gave you. Nice to see you. Cheers. See you. Bye. Yeah, it's fascinating how many people who come to us as new clients who have already had Botox have no idea. And we make a point of being like, this is what we did and why. So that if you were to go somebody else past me, you know what you liked, what worked, and how it happened. It's not rocket science to give you a general idea of what went down. Right. And then a super passionate thing for me is this whole idea that patients can walk in and tell me how much Botox they need to stick to Botox, or one syringe of filler is going to get them a perfect set of lips. That's the industry problem that's been set, is just, you're diabetic. You wouldn't ever walk in and tell a physician how many units of insulin to give you. It's the same thing. It's medication. I am prescribing you your Botox. So thank you for what you think you need. I will make my recommendation, and then we will move on from that. I will set the expectation based on what I recommend. And then if you are for some reason set on 34 versus 40 units that I recommend, let's talk about what that's going to do potentially and set your expectation. So my best advice is setting it very initially, first off, and don't ever there's never a loss of control if you speak to it in the beginning. Yeah, and in the defense of nurses who struggle, medical providers who struggle with this, right? The hospital and your previous experience almost all the time has set the customer expectation way up here, right? You don't even get credit for a good experience unless you're a 9 or a 10. So it is very difficult for us to take charge and be what we need to be. You're in my chair. This is my situation, because this is not the same thing as being in a hospital setting. So that disassociation from that is very difficult, especially for RNs, right? Because the physician is the one, in the hospital especially, kind of setting the standard and the expectation. If they get sick, RNs really don't get blamed, right? It's this physician that's going to get blamed. And so when RN owns your own business, even a nurse practitioner, and setting those expectations is just foreign to us when we're coming out of mainstream medicine. So just doing it first off, having the confidence to start off that way, it'll quickly become the norm in your practice and in your business as the aesthetic, as the injector, as the owner of the business, if you'll just start that way. And the last thing I'll say on that, Nathan, is get your mind out of your patient's wallet. That's my saying. We are definitely worried because we aren't concerned with that financial side in mainstream medicine. Again, in the hospital particularly, it's not on us at all to be concerned about what's finances or any of those things to a complete fault. But that translates over to we are constantly worried, 40 units, and we're just like, this is going to be $1,000. Like, stop. They're here because either they chose to be here because they can afford it, or they can't afford it and they're choosing it. Whatever the case is, it's not really your concern. So just get your mind out of their wallet. It's a business. You are making profit. This is a for-profit industry. We are not, in the hospital. This is a different scenario.
Wow, that is so good. And like, when you look at it from the mainstream medicine point of view, imagine if your grandmother went to a cardiologist and the cardiologist was worried, well, I don't know how much money she has, so I'm not going to give her the option to have a stent. I'm just going to tell her she can take these meds. You would consider that person to be, practicing malpractice, right? Not doing what's best in interest. So you really bring the point is like, that happens so often. And I think a lot of it is because people are uncomfortable with money, but you're exactly right. You need to act the same way you do in the kind of the hospital, where you're like, hey, this is what's best for you. If you can find it, if you can pay for it, cool. If not, here's a second best option,
Yeah, right. The aesthetics industry has done a bad job of letting the injector decide what the patient needs, in the sense that there are standards. And that's one of the things we really harp on. Allergan's dosing is FDA approved for a specific reason. The dose equals the duration. It is shown, it is clinically studied. So there's a level of us, of course, autonomously deciding what you need and what you want based on your aesthetic needs. But then the dosing and stuff like that is kind of set. So to your point, we're not taking it down because we think they can't afford it. No, this is medicine, and this is a set, clinically backed way to do things. And our role is to guide them through what they aesthetically want. And then we treat them appropriately based on guidelines and based on clinically proven stuff.
We've talked about a lot of things like, maybe the competition in aesthetics and maybe the way we've positioned pricing or patient options. Is there anything that you think that's coming that will maybe change the industry, and anything we've talked about, or maybe something that we've not talked about? Anything you think that's going to be an industry changer that's coming up?
Like a product?
Anything, like product, the way we do things, like even we talked about the pricing, and even, some people are moving away from pricing from the unit to pricing per area, or not pricing syringe, but pricing, for what we're treating. Anything that you think is coming that will maybe change the way we practice, or they'll change the industry?
So speaking the way you just said, even the way that I'm training people to get off of, don't sell a syringe, sell a set of lips. Don't sell a number of units, sell how all three of these work together and why, the educational behind it. And so that's very similar to what you just mentioned of selling the area, which is close to what I'm saying. I'm going to step further of selling the result instead of selling the syringe or even the area, and then educating on why I'm selling you the three areas together for specifically, like anatomically, why they all work together. And then, selling instead of syringes, that lip experience is, I'm not saying that's a real reality for the new injector. Selling a syringe makes the most sense, and we do say that. But once you have a little confidence in the set of lips that you provide, for example, the cheek you provide, whatever, selling that experience and that result instead of those syringes and stuff is what I hope the industry moves to. It will be a game changer for clients for sure, as well as for businesses, and people will be much happier. Clients, especially, the business is happier because they're getting a result and not, from the business side. I think the model that we are presenting, not to do a plug for Smiley, but the idea is that you are working for yourself and you are getting that money, and you're not working for a medical director. You're doing the work. You've gotten the education. You're doing that whole model idea of owning and operating your own business, as opposed to just being an injector in a med spa and getting some illegal commission plant or whatever the case is that's this big and giving all your money away. I really do think that model in aesthetics will be disruptive and will change things, and that's what we're working towards, to put the power back in the hands of the nurse or medical provider, and away from corporate.
I think you're 100% right on. I think we guys are really empowering a whole generation of medical entrepreneurs. And I think right now, from what I see, and the people that watch a lot of the podcasts, people that reach out to us, there's a whole bunch of people in mainstream medicine that are very dissatisfied for a lot of different reasons. And, your option is giving them a way to channel that energy into doing something that can benefit them.
Yeah.
And I think it's amazing. So great kudos for both of you. You do great things.
Yeah, so you're definitely an industry disruptor. And even when I asked you that question, I thought, well, maybe you are the the thing that's coming that'll change the industry, like, what you're doing. So, well, I know you guys have some exciting things coming up. Do you want to talk about some of the projects or things you're working on? I know you both are speaking at an event later this year, and you want to talk about some other cool things that you're working on?
Sure. So yeah, we're both going to be in Aesthetic Next and speaking individually, put together, or for Smiley, at Aesthetic Next at 5.0 in Dallas in September, which is an amazing conference. People who know way more than us and are doing it for way longer speak there and teach there. Their clinical lineup is to die for. Some of the people that I've been trained by privately, and I can't speak to more. So a little plug for Aesthetic Next. We filmed a TV show last week. It's actually our second time. The first one still hasn't been released, but that's really exciting. We can't talk about it too much, but that was fun to do, and it was very business focused. It was educational, a great experience for us. We are coming out with some webinars, and we've invested back into our training facility to really elevate the experience from a technology standpoint, the AV system, and then some of the stuff to be able to reach more people in an affordable, sometimes free, but also very affordable way for education. From us, for a business, we are growing our knowledge in a very deep business level. We are, opening Smiley to investments, and we're having, some pretty big conversations that will only just help the industry as a whole, because investing right now, private equity, venture capital, whatever it is a super hot topic for medical spas and for aesthetics. It was a focus at AmSpa in February, merger and acquisitions and some of that stuff. So us being knee deep in that, shoulder deep in that space, it will only help us to educate other people even better, even more in it, and open them up to the possibility of nobody thinks about when they open a med spa, is there a chance that I get bought, put into an umbrella that I then have shares in, that I'm still operating the business and making great money. But I mean, it's this whole new world of opportunity for medical aesthetics. So I'm proud to say that we're dabbling in that heavily. We have been for a couple months, and it'll just further our ability to help entrepreneurs, which is our ultimate medical entrepreneurs, which is our ultimate goal. So
I love that you're both very passion and impact based. I think that kind of comes before even the money or the profits with you guys. And I feel like anytime that you're giving and you're providing value and something that's going to change, the profits always follow. But both of you seem to be very passionate and very focused on just the helping aspect. And then whatever comes after that, is just a blessing.
I love that you just said that. A topic that we touched on with some people last week was not being money driven, or Smiley Aesthetics truly is not money driven. So while we're expanding to more states and growing that side of it in more med spas, our mission and our value does not lie in how much money can we make and how quickly. It's quite the opposite. And then speaking back to what we talked about with the competitive part of it, karma is a thing, and we have been blessed in the last year, and I do think it's because we've offered so much stuff without trying to make money. And Karma's following us in the sense, blessing us with opportunities and stuff. We're both driven by our backgrounds and what we don't want to see the future hold. Yeah. Based on our history, both corporate, personal, upbringing, all of it. Right. If you can change that, and we just, this was a great idea, and this is a great business and a great vehicle to do that.
Just like you guys have demonstrated, you give so much value, then the money will follow. So I love that, and that's amazing. And you've helped so many medical entrepreneurs, and I think it's just your journey is just beginning. So that's so awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. We really love to have you. We loved having you guys. Sorry. And it's just so cool also to see you guys interact. The whole twin thing is amazing. And it's just like, I think you guys were destined to do this together. It's really cool, People
can find us, Smiley Aesthetics is smileyaesthetics.com. We have a pretty good social media presence as well, just all under the name Smiley Aesthetics. So it's pretty easy to learn about us. And you can learn a lot about us and our model on our website. And I'm really passionate that it is the right fit for you, because some people have enough of the backing, education, all the things to do this themselves and don't need us at all. But for the majority of nurses, they do need what does it break down all that barrier to start, and then you can just don't worry about it. So we really are passionate about making sure it's the right fit, and you can kind of find out all about that on our website, the training, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, we're launching a YouTube channel too to put more content just to business and her Instagram and her social media is all business tips that she just posts on there or whatever. Mine's a little more clinical and it's stuff. So another place to find free stuff and just enjoy the show. Then we're going to do a YouTube channel so people just watch us look like twins.
That's awesome.
With the medical aesthetics, learn something, but also make fun of us. So thank you all for having us. This is amazing. And what you guys do, love the podcast, love all of it. So super excited to be a part of this. Can't wait to share. Yeah.
Well, it was our pleasure. It's truly
definitely our pleasure. And I think the audience learned so much from everything you give, and such great. And thank you for being so open and sharing. It's really a hallmark of someone who's an expert at what they do, and also someone who's undergone the journey. Because I always feel like the one thing I didn't realize when I first started my medical entrepreneur journey was that the journey was going to be more of an internal thing than external. And while there's a lot of stuff that happens externally, you have to grow inside in order for you to reach those external levels. And I can just tell by the things you say, the way that you say them, that you've undergone that journey. So it's just really nice.
Yeah, we're still working on her, but yeah, I've definitely grown.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, appreciate it.